Welcome to Working Towards Our Purpose, a podcast that offers a different perspective on what a job can be. For everyone out there that's heard that voice in the back of their head asking for something more, it's time to listen to it. I'm your host, Gino, and join me as I interview people who have decided to work in their own purpose. Together, we will learn, become inspired, and hopefully find our own path towards working in our purpose. Welcome back to Working Towards Our Purpose, and today I have a solo episode for you, and I have a topic in mind that I want to get to, and I think hopefully it could be relatable for a lot of people who are trying to do something new. And the idea is basically something that I noticed within myself, that I get really frustrated when I see lack of progress with something new that I'm doing. So anything new that I start, and, if it takes like longer than a little bit to see progress or to see results, I tend to get really frustrated and then become hard on myself. So I kind of just want to talk about this idea and like how it's kind of a little bit nonsensical, or not fair, maybe is a better way to say it. Not really being fair to myself, not giving myself a little bit of grace. So I think if I can change my attitude on this, then it'll help me not give up so easily when I'm trying something new. So I noticed this pattern within myself because the past 20 days or so, at the time of this recording, I've been building my podcast website out. I've been Working Towards Our Purpose, and I've built a website before, but I've never built a website from WordPress before. And to make a long story short, I've been very frustrated with my GoDaddy website that I have for my business, Pleasant Podcast, and they charge me way too much money per year, and the limitations of the website builder has just been frustrating. So if you know nothing about websites, there's certain website builders out there like Wix or Squarespace where they're very simple, just drag and drop, and with a little bit of learning, you can build a pretty nice looking website for not really knowing that much about websites. I remember when I first built my website for Pleasant Podcast, I was like, wow, this is easy. I can put this template in here. I just put my pictures in, put my words in, and I got a whole website. And it makes it super easy. The problem being that when you build websites with GoDaddy or with Squarespace or with Wix, you basically are stuck within that company. Like I can't move my GoDaddy website to Squarespace now because GoDaddy's charging me too much. So basically you get stuck and you have to pay them whatever they want you to pay. Because you built it on their website builder, you can't transfer it anywhere else, which is why WordPress exists. And WordPress has been a place where people have built websites for a long time. And it's a lot more complex than just a drag and drop kind of thing. It's set up very old school, and it takes a little bit more to learn the back end of it and to learn how it works, because it's not just drag and drop. So anyway, I found out that if I build my website on WordPress, then I can basically download it and move it anywhere that I want. So I'm not stuck with any service. So I looked into some of my options, and I found Bluehost is a hosting website where I can use WordPress. And they were basically charging me the same amount of money that I was paying in 1 year for GoDaddy for 3 years of having 3 websites, which is a considerable savings. And because I wanted my second website, I wanted to not have to pay an additional fee. Whereas on GoDaddy, they basically wanted me to pay twice for both websites. So now I'm looking at $600 a year to have 2 websites. Whereas using WordPress on Bluehost, it was basically $300 for 3 years of 3 websites. So getting back to my story, I had to learn WordPress, and I've kind of used it a little bit for certain clients before. I've gone in and made changes and stuff. So I was kind of familiar with the layout and how things worked, but I've never built a website on WordPress from scratch. So I was like, well, how hard could it be, right? So I go on, I start looking at some videos, I start playing around with it. And within the first day, I remember getting to the end of the first day and just being so frustrated and being like, what am I doing? I should have just stayed on GoDaddy. Who cares if it's a little bit more money? Now you're wasting all your time doing this, and there's no point. So I remember having that thought. And then I remember about a week later when I had my website 80% done, and then having another thought being like, remember when you were frustrated that you thought this was a waste of time and you were never going to get it done? And now here you are a week later 80% of the site's done and you feel good about it and you feel like happy that you learned this new skill. And then it just got me to question like, why do I so quickly think like, oh, this isn't working. This is a waste of time. Why did I do this? I don't want to do this anymore. And it was just kind of an interesting thought. And I realized that like, I kind of do that a lot with a lot of different things. Like I get frustrated right off the bat if something's not working. And same thing happened when I was trying to book guests for this podcast. I remember during the break that I took, I was trying to book a bunch of people and I wanted to have like, 20 episodes in the bank. So I was ready to go. And then like 3 weeks went by and I haven't booked anybody. And I was like getting really frustrated. And then I randomly got an email from somebody that I've never met before. And they were like, hey, we should have a podcast swap because we have similar podcasts. And then again, it made me think about like, why am I so hard on myself for not like getting these things done or not getting results right away? And, I think it's good sometimes to be hard on yourself, but I also think that if you're doing it in a way that's like hindering you from accomplishing the task, then it almost seems like pointless. It's like you're trying to do this new thing, but then you're so mad at yourself for not being able to do it right away, immediately, then you give up. And for me, I'm thinking about like, if I could just change my mindset a little bit and be like, oh yeah, this is the first week of me doing this. Maybe I should just let it go, not be so frustrated right now, see what happens in a week. And it seems so simple as I'm talking about it and saying it, but when I'm doing it, I don't remember that in the moment. And I had a conversation with one of my friends recently, and she was kind of saying the same thing as I was talking about this idea of like being so frustrated at not learning something quickly. And she was like, yeah, and I usually just give up. Like I give up on the thing that I'm doing. And I wonder how many things there are that I could have done if I didn't give up. And like her reflecting on that. And it's just interesting. I don't know. It's like almost, I'm confused at the fact that like I don't even allow myself to have some understanding that like, because it's new, it's going to take a little bit longer than it would if you didn't know how to do it. And that's like such a simple topic or a simple concept, but for whatever reason, like it's hard to act in that way. And it's hard to not like beat yourself up for not getting it right away. And I don't know, it makes me wonder like where that comes from. I mean, I guess schooling as a kid was like that. Like if you didn't get it right away, you were the dumb kid in the class and you were laughed at. And, maybe it's that sort of like training of your head and then you treating yourself in that way of like, oh, you're not getting it right away. You must be stupid. You must not understand how to do things. You must not be good at this. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And yeah, maybe even a little bit of like the imposter syndrome comes in too. I think at one point, if I'm really like putting myself back in that position when I was mad at myself, I think part of it was like, oh, you shouldn't even be building websites. Why are you building a website? That's not something that you do. And then a week later, when I did my website, my next thought was like, oh, maybe I can help other podcasters build their websites now because now I know how to do it. And it's just, I don't know, it's funny the limitations we put on ourselves. And I think that's kind of like maybe what I'm getting at. Hopefully I'm not being too rambly, but like, I think that's what it is the limitations that we put on ourselves of like not being able to do certain things or thinking that we can't do something because it's challenging at the beginning. But it's totally normal for something to be challenging at the beginning and to not know how to do it at the beginning because you don't know how to do it. And it's the whole point of doing something new. So I guess now as I'm thinking about it too, it makes me want to like almost do new things more often to get used to trying things and then be gentle with myself and give myself grace that like you're not going to get it right away and, to stick with it until it does make sense or until it does click. So I guess a big part of it is probably just patience and being kind to yourself, which is something that I definitely struggle with, is being kind to myself. And I think a lot of people also struggle with that. So yeah, I don't know. I guess this episode is kind of a reminder of that. I'm also starting a new job this week, and I had my first few days already, and they were kind of just meetings because it's a part-time job. And part of it is going to some weekly meetings that the organization has. And I found myself in the first meeting being kind of excited and like learning. And then our second meeting was virtual. And so I kind of just did it from my apartment, logged on to the Zoom and was kind of just listening. And I was also kind of finding myself in a position where I'm like, man, I don't have anything to offer to these meetings. Like, I don't really know what's going on yet, and I'm kind of just absorbing it. But I also found myself in the position like, what am I doing here? I don't know if I'm adding any value here. I don't know that this was the right decision, right? Going back and forth with like those thoughts. And again, it's kind of the same concept of like, it's something that I started very recently and I haven't learned the job yet. And I'm already kind of in the position of like thinking of myself as like, why am I here? Should I be here? Should they have even hired me? I don't think I have anything to contribute at this point. But then remembering like, okay, well, it's your second like meeting with them. Like, you've worked for this company for like 4 hours. Like, so it kind of makes sense when you reflect on it that you have nothing to contribute yet, because it's like you don't even understand a lot of how things operate. So, and even to back up even more and be like, well, they're probably not even expecting anything of you yet because you're still learning. And again, the harsh self-judgment on like, you should be doing this by now. It's such a weird thing to think about and then to reflect upon, because it's like, logically, I know that, yeah, I'm starting new and I shouldn't really have to contribute anything right this second, just kind of sit, learn, and absorb. But then the other part of my brain is like, hey, you should be doing this. You should feel bad because you're not contributing anything. You should, maybe you should be learning faster. Maybe you should be doing this. And there's just, again, the self criticism and how, like, if you let it, it could stop you in your tracks. It could make me quit. It can make me not go back. But to keep in mind that, like, it's normal, I guess, to have that at the beginning. And it just makes me think about how, like, there's people that I talk to, and a lot of people feel so frustrated at like what they're doing currently in their job, but their idea that they have, it just seems like such an insurmountable task. And there's like so many things to go. You don't know so many things. Like, how am I going to do this thing when I've never done this thing before? And then you start beating yourself up for it. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if there's people out there that are wanting to do something but are being critical on themselves, like, I think the best thing you can try to do is to observe yourself being critical on yourself. And then you can take it a step further and be like, okay, that makes sense, but I'm doing something new and I don't know how to do it yet. So let me not put any energy into the self-criticism, and let me just put energy into the figuring it out. Give yourself an hour a week, give yourself however much time you have to trying to put time to it. Because I think it always goes back to the Nike slogan, just do it. But like, if you have an hour, you can either sit and think about the hour and think about how you're not prepared for this, or you don't understand this, or you're too dumb to understand this, or you're not the right person to be doing this. You could do that for a whole hour, or you could just like do something and Google search something. And even if you only read a couple articles, you still made a little bit of progress and you still figured something out. And if you keep doing that, eventually it's going to culminate into something where now you do know how to figure it out. And I don't know, maybe it's an adult thing too. Like, maybe once you get a certain age, you think like you can do this or you can't do this. And you kind of just set more limitations on yourself. And it's just like not true. You can learn anything at any time. And like, you can learn how to build websites at 60, or you can, learn anything at any age if you just try and put yourself to it. There's no limitations other than the ones that you put on yourself. And I think a lot of times we tell ourselves that we can't do this. This isn't our field of expertise. It's like, well, it can be if you start now. And yeah, I don't know, kind of going on a rant here, but I'm mostly talking to myself in these conversations, and because I do this a lot, I give myself limitations at times, and it can be frustrating and it can be hard when you're hard on yourself. But to keep remembering that it's okay to not figure it all out in one take. You can try again tomorrow, and you can try again the next week, and you can try again. And the more you keep trying, you'll eventually figure it out. A lot of times I've had feedback of people being like, oh, well, I could never like do what you did. I don't know where to start on my idea. I think sometimes it's helpful to just remember to not criticize yourself so much, and to put that energy into just doing it. And it's definitely hard, and I definitely understand it. And I definitely have currently just gone through it and I'm still going through it. But I think the more that we talk about this and the more that we have conversations about the way that we treat ourselves, the better we can recognize that we're doing it, and then we can let it go. And you can recognize like, oh, I'm beating myself up on something because it's something new and it's hard and it's challenging, and that's okay. But I don't need this negative self-talk. So just something that I've been thinking about a lot because I'm going through a lot of changes right now and I'm starting a lot of new things, and it's something that's coming up and I'm noticing that it's something that's hindering me and it's something that's slowing me down. But again, I'm reminding myself like, that's okay. You can take your time at it. You don't have to figure it out right now. If it takes you 2 more weeks, if it takes you 3 more weeks, that's fine. That at least you'll get it done. At the end of the day, if my website's launched and it took me 3 weeks of building instead of 1 week, nobody's going to know. Like the only person that knows that is me. Like at the end of the day, my podcast website is there, it's built, and it's the way that I want it to be. And because it took a couple weeks longer, it doesn't make any difference. And I shouldn't beat myself up because it took me 3 weeks instead of the 1 week unrealistic goal that I had going into it. So yeah, just a reminder to everyone that like to be easy on yourself, and it's okay to be like critical and hypercritical, but to not let that stop you or to slow you down. And I think more than ever now, I need to hear like, it's okay. You can be easy on yourself. You can give yourself grace. It's okay to not make the deadline. It's okay to go a little bit past the deadline, because either way, it's going to get done at the end of the day. And that's what's important, is accomplishing the thing and doing the thing that you set out to do. So the timeline is less important than getting the task done. And yeah, just a reminder to me that it's okay if it takes a little bit longer than you imagine or you expect, because you're usually putting pretty strict goals on yourself. So I hope this episode made sense. I hope this resonated with someone. And, again, getting used to these solo episodes and trying to pontificate on these ideas that are going around in my head. So hopefully bring them to light, and hopefully it helps somebody somewhere. I appreciate you all for listening. Thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to Working Towards Our Purpose. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share with a friend or leave a review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you'd like to support the show, you can go to my website, workingtowardsourpurpose.com, where you could purchase Working Towards Our Purpose official merchandise. Thanks for listening.